We begin today with sad scenes from Mokwa in Niger State, where flood survivors are still stranded days after disaster struck. Though the federal government has released some funds, we are unclear if that has been translated into real value for affected victims. We'll be speaking with our correspondent who has been on the ground for the current situation. Then, of course, we will shift our attention to the new NCC directive. Let's get everybody talking. We will again seek some clarity from tech analysts on the reasoning behind the decisions for banks to now deduct USSD charges directly from your airtime. Our big story today is the National Assembly's latest move to curb corruption, a proposed law that could earn offenders up to 7-year jail term for workplace bribery. But is it bold or just bluster? A legal expert weighs in as Nigerians react to this latest move. On Extra Special, we confront a scandal that sparked outrage. A teenager, an apprentice, reportedly impregnates 10 girls in 5 months. We ask, is this a moral breakdown or a failure of the system? Faith and family experts will be on in this conversation. In Focus Africa, we shift gears to Ivory Coast, where 4 opposition candidates, including heavyweights like Tijani Tiam, have been barred from contesting the October elections. What does this mean for democracy in West Africa? It is a packed show, as usual, but you have 2 different faces. I mean, one new face, that's
no, you're not.
me, and then my co-anchor,
Yeah,
Julie.
there we go. It's not a brand new face, Joe. They already know your face here.
Yeah, I've been here on and off for a bit. So we will be together, and of course the team of producers and production team behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
We will be taking on all the conversations.
Absolutely. It's going to be 3 hours of the very best just for you. But let's get started very first, just to get things right on moving. And we're going to get started with the big report. It's where we spotlight the issues shaping lives across Nigeria and sometimes Africa. Now, this morning, our focus shifts to Mokwa, a community in Niger State, Nigeria, still reeling from the aftermath of a devastating flood that swept through the area just days ago. Now, entire homes were washed away, families displaced, and to make matters worse, no relief camp, no medical help, no access to clean water. Residents say they have been abandoned and with no coordinated response in sight. They are left to pick up the pieces alone. Our correspondent Joshua Imarayi has been on the ground in Mokwa and brought us this update. Take a look. We will bring that report in our subsequent bulletins, but in the meantime, we're now being joined by Kayode Oni. He is the head of news unit at Search FM. Kayode, it's good to have you join us, and a very good morning to you.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for being with us. I mean, what's happened in Mokwa is a very sobering reminder of how climate-related disasters, when met with weak emergency response, can be brought to, thousands displaced and, persons without homes and families separated and just devastated, leading towards Eid. But tell me, you are a resident there, you've been in the news. What are we looking at?
We are looking at a situation where so many lives have been negatively impacted by the disaster. And like you said in your opener, for now, the victims of the disaster are not receiving adequate attention in terms of relief distribution, but it's actually devastating for not just residents of that community, but the state in general, because it's like family. So many of the victims have relatives staying outside of the area, and they've been in mourning ever since the disaster happened. And out of respect for the dead and survivors from the disaster, traditionally, Salah celebration in Niger State is always accompanied by Durbar activities. And the state government has said, out of respect for the dead, they canceled Durbar activities this year and asked residents to observe a low-key Salah celebration. They are still trying to pick up the pieces, like you said, but for now, the picture is looking very grim.
Okay, this question seems really tired, but it's essential we'll ask it. The federal government, as usual, responded and they said they've released 2 billion naira along with trucks authorized for the people. Do you have any update as to whether the victims are getting access to any of this, or is there, like a schedule of how it will be disbursed to reach the right people?
For now, there's not been any official announcement with regards to how the aid promised by the federal government is going to be distributed. The state has been transparent, though, in terms of who has donated what. There is an open account announced by the state for Niger State, because Niger State distress account for donors, civil society organizations, well-meaning Nigerians to donate funds to help the victims. And thus far, I think each donor, once you donate into the account, your name and the amount you donated will be published. So for last time I checked, as of last night, well over 200 million naira has been donated by so many persons, important dignitaries, some still in government, some past government officials, some serving senators, immediate past governor.
Yeah, but beyond,
with regards to how this money.
Kayode, I get it that, you're confirming that people are donating, but what is most essential now is the people, the victims who have been displaced and their lives completely shattered. I'm asking if this relief is getting to them. And while we're waiting for that, I'll just add to it, talk to us about what previous experience has shown about how these funds are disbursed and this food that is brought is shared.
The relief materials are being delivered, but in trickles, not in a sizable number that the victims would appreciate or desire to have. They are only coming down in trickles, and the state government is saying the delay with regards to delivering these relief materials and essential items to the victims as a result of the logistics nightmare or quagmire they are presently experiencing. If you recall, so many roads have been washed away. 3 bridges were destroyed during the disaster, and you need roads and bridges to convey relief items to the badly affected areas in the community. But there's been a development, though. Initially, in the early days of the disaster, there was no form of temporary shelter whatsoever. Some of the victims were forced to sleep in the open. They were exposed to the elements, and it was very bad. They were forced to later seek temporary shelter with relatives in and around the communities. And now there's a form of temporary shelter in place. 2 camps for internally displaced persons, one run by the state and the other by UNICEF. So just because in the early days of disaster, the victims were not being sheltered and were forced to stay with relatives, now that we have some form of shelter in place, there's this reluctance on the part of the victims to actually stay in the camps for an extended period of time. So what is obtainable presently is that they just go to the IDP camps, have their meal, because they are being there's meal for, they have their breakfast, their lunch and dinner. So they have their meal at the IDP camps and they go back to where their relatives they are putting up with. So for now, relief materials have been coming down in trickles and not a sizable number that will actually grant relief or succor to the victims. With regards to how past experiences with regards to relief materials being distributed to victims, it's not been a pleasant one, and there's hangover effect with regards to that. Now there's an element of distrust in the air. People are saying, okay, all this money is being donated, all these pledges, are the pledges going to actually lead to, because it's one thing for you to pledge a sum, it's another thing for you to deliver on your pledge or promise. So persons are skeptical with regards to if these monies will actually be made available, and if they eventually are made available, will they get to the worst hit victims of this disaster? So there's this element of distrust, and everybody is saying it's high time. You don't just post about who donated what, but let us see the impact. Let us see the relief materials being delivered to the victims of the disaster. So for now, we are yet to see that, but we are trusting that the government will be very transparent this time around with regard, as against what has been the previous experiences with regards to helping the victims. So people are skeptical, and in fact, we have some persons who are already saying they have tips or they've heard from somewhere, unverified though, that some persons are planning to divert some of the funds and all of that. So nothing is official yet, but for now, relief, there's a development for now, but not enough to actually grant succor to the victims of disaster.
Kayode, I mean, one thing is certain. One thing when it comes to Nigeria and transparency with public funds, it's always a different story entirely. But I would like to also talk more on the welfare of the victims of this flood, especially those who have lost families and loved ones, and those who are still in search of their families and loved ones. Speak to us about what that number is looking like and what the search. Can you hear me?
I can hear now.
Kayode, can you hear us?
Kayode, can you hear me now? Kayode, I was asking about the welfare of Nigerians. I was asking about the welfare of the victims, right, of the flood. Now, we know that over 200 persons have now been confirmed dead and pulled out of the rubble, but there's still 1,000 more missing. What's the rescue mission looking like, or rather, the search mission at this time looking at, especially for those who are still yet to, get news about their loved ones that are lost to this flash floods?
Rescue, should I call it recovery? Because at this point, hopes of retrieving anyone alive is almost non-existent. So it's more of recovery operation presently. It's being spearheaded by the National Emergency Management Agency in collaboration with the Niger State Emergency Management Agency in the SEMA, as well as the locals. They've been digging through the rubbles and trying to clear debris in the hope of finding more bodies. So far, due to logistical problem as well, it's not been very effective. Most of the locals are relying on digging, sometimes with their bare hands, to see if they can salvage some property or find a relative. And there's a psychological effect to this thing. Most of the victims that survived, though, are traumatized, and it's been very, very difficult. Welfare-wise, it's been poor. It's been poor because they've actually not received the help that they need with regards to recovering from the trauma they've suffered. And some, Africans are very much into sending forth their loved ones with funeral rites and all of that. So there are some families that are not yet comfortable.
They've not been able to find closure as regards the loss of
their made worse by the fact that they cannot even retrieve the bodies of their loved ones to bury, and that's been a serious issue. And
not knowing is what makes it hard, Yes, Kayode, just a second, because we're trying to bring in our correspondent who has been covering this situation, this disaster, Joshua Imarayi. He joins us live now from Niger State. Joshua, a very good morning to you, and well done on all the hard work and bringing us up to date. Let's find out with you, what's the latest this morning?
Well, good morning to you, Jake. So basically, the latest is the reeling out of aid to those people who have suffered this devastating effect of the flood. You recall that a few days back, the vice president visited them and made certain promises. So after making those promises now, those who were affected in expectation of those promises being fulfilled, talking about a roof over their head, food as well, because the vice president said that the federal government is reassigning the Minister of State for Food Security to stay for the next 1 week to ensure the delivery and distribution of those food items that has been designated and duly assigned to them. So we are expecting the federal government to fulfill their pledge within this week. But however, the federal government says they are condoning that particular area where that devastation occurred, so to forestall any kind of disease outbreaks and the like. So that's where we are in this particular case.
Joshua, you talked about what the federal government has promised, but what are the criteria? I mean, in order for these people to to quickly, that's a better word, get access to the promises that's been made, there has to be some coordination. Any idea whether the criteria has been spelled out for those whose homes will be rebuilt and for those who are supposed to get part of the 20 trucks of rice and stuff?
Well, based on what I saw, it is a communal understanding of those who are affected. So it's more or less your neighbor knowing who has been affected. There's a list actually listed out of those who are affected, the people lost, and as well as those in a particular need or the other. So I think they already have this plan. The chief of the area knows everybody. The neighbor knows his fellow neighbor, as well as those who are staying in that area. They know who we are affected. So basically, it is more or less meeting them at the point of their need based on who is who. It's a communal understanding, so they know who will be getting this and who will not be getting this. Because earlier they lamented that while the distribution of aid commenced maybe before, just few days after the incident, some people who were not affected by the flooding were actually enjoying this same benefit. So they swooped in to ensure that those who were not affected should not be getting this aid, but only those who are affected. So they already have a list of those affected, and the coming days, when the implementation of those aids comes into play, those who were affected will be duly considered. So I believe that those who are around that area knows who we are affected and who we are not.
Joshua, in your earlier report from Mokwa, you spoke to some people who expressed, and I mean a community leader who said that people don't stay at the IDP camp, and Kayode confirmed it this morning. They just go to the IDP camp to eat and they leave. Is there some concern about the conditions of the IDP camp? That's why some people are leaving, or they're more comfortable where they are? Help us understand the reasoning behind the lack of use of the IDPs.
First things first, the government came in too late in response to this particular disaster that rocked Mokwa government area of Niger State, basically because that IDP camp was not set up by the government. It was set up by the collaborative effort of some well-meaning Nigerians who were not affected by the flooding. The government never knew where the IDP camp is, and it is only after a while that the government were tilting to that direction of them saying they established an IDP camp. So basically, the presence of government was not in that IDP camp. The only yardstick that will guarantee people staying in where they feel should be a camp is when they know that government presence is there. When I mean government presence in the likes of medical aids, in the likes of temporary mattresses, temporary mosquito nets, as well as other amenities to caution the effects of this flooding. So basically, that is one of the reasons why they did not actually go there. And secondly, that place lacks the basic amenities of life. When I talk about basic amenities of life, I mean pipe-bomb water. You would understand that days after that incident occurred in Mokwa, they still did not have light. A section of that town did not have light. It is only a few days after, just maybe a day or two before the vice president came, that was where the other side of Mokwa had light. So basically, there's no water in that camp, no running water in that camp, no government presence. And the only thing you could see are just desks, empty classrooms, or maybe sometimes locked classrooms. So basically, the presence of government not being in that camp is one of the major reasons why those people are refusing to go there. And secondly, there's this question of, if I go there, who will feed me? Who will feed me? So that is another issue, because you can't go to where you know your family members are not, and at the end of the day, you stay there hungry, having suffered a devastating effect days before, and you go back again to come and suffer hunger. So it is like a two-way losses that they don't want to incur in themselves. So that is why they are passionate up with their friends or well-wishers, or those who willingly absorb them into their household for the time being.
It's quite sad, really. It's just what you said earlier in your monologue about.
I think it's dehumanizing to have people return to the site of, their trauma or grief, and then ask them to stay there, when you have refused to provide, psychological help in terms of therapy, or grief experts or counselors. You have refused to provide, the very basic amenities. And your late arrival already is very dehumanizing to think of. And then now they still have to, scrape around. So it's very disheartening, right? And then I want to ask you just to paint a picture of us, for us. I mean, because we're sitting here in the studios, we're seeing the visuals, but it's a lot different, to have a first-hand experience. And so I'm going to start with you, Kayode, to sort of just paint the picture of the mindset and the realities of the victims of Mokwa local government area. Every morning that they wake up, what are they facing?
Every morning when they wake up, they face hopelessness. In a nutshell, they do not know what the future holds in store for them. They've lost loved ones, which could be very psychologically damaging. So it's a sense of hopelessness in the air. And, we are talking about livelihoods being destroyed. They don't know. Some kids have lost both parents. Some parents have lost all of their children. They don't know. Some who had jobs, who had breadwinners washed away in the floor, don't know who's going to pay their school fees when they resume, who's going to feed them, where they're going to get the next meal. So it's despair in the air and just sense of hopelessness. For now, I think that's just the atmosphere in Mokwa. Hopelessness and distrust, not trusting the authorities regards to doing the right thing. So many promises have been made. The Deputy Governor, Comrade Yakubu, said there's going to be an intensive infrastructural development of damaged areas with effect from next month, or this month rather, because he made the promise last month. And so people want to believe the government will act as swiftly as it has promised, but the general sense here in Mokwa is that of distrust. Okay, we've had this before, they're not going to do it, so...
To ask Joshua to respond to, to also speak on that would be like repeating what we already know is the reality on the ground. I was trying to say earlier that Judith talked about the fact that if government do not want to do what they are expected to, they should just log off. I needed to repeat that because it makes no sense to say, I have provided IDP camp, and like Joshua said, there is basically nothing there that makes it habitable for people to want to stay there.
There's also the matter of drinking water, Felicity. We could go on and on. There's also the matter of, drinking water, of clean sanitary amenities as well. Food that is not expired, also, portioning and rationing. There's just so much. But gentlemen, it's where we have to draw the curtains on this discussion. I must say thank you. We'll continue to ring the alarm on Mokwa, and our eyes are on Mokwa local government area as we continue to shine a spotlight on the people. And we hope that the search mission continues for the thousands, or rather the 1,000 that is buried on that rubble, so that families can have closure and be able to bury their loved ones. Joshua Imarayi, our correspondent live from Mokwa, Niger State, who's bringing us updates, and also Kayode Oni is the head of news unit at Search FM. Gentlemen, many thanks for joining us. Appreciate you for coming on.